What if the problem you're having at work isn't just bad luck? What if the arguments before every important meeting, the missing car keys, the consistent calls, the emergencies that only seem to happen when you're working, um, and it seems to be intentional? Because sometimes financial abuse isn't about taking your paycheck. Sometimes it's about making sure you can't keep a job. Today on Survivor to Survivor, we're talking about employment and what happens when you begin wondering if the person who's supposed to support your success is actually trying to destroy it. This is Survivor to Survivor.
Survivor to survivor, break the silence. In the depths of silence, a voice emerges. A voice that says, "You are not alone." Welcome to Survivor, where strength rises through shared stories, where pain transforms into resilience, where survivors connect and empower each other. Your story matters. Your voice matters. You matter. Join the movement. Subscribe now. Welcome to Survivor to Survivor.
Welcome back to another Friday of Survivor to Survivor. We got an email in from a fellow survivor who says, I think my husband is trying to get me fired. This might sound paranoid, but I'm starting to wonder if my husband is intentionally trying to make me lose my job. I've worked at the same company for almost 3 years, and I'm finally in a position where I could move up. But every time something important happens at work, something happens at home. If I have an early meeting, he'll start an argument that night before and keep me up half the night. I've had my car keys mysteriously disappear, and when I'm already running late, especially, he calls me consistently while I'm working, and if I don't answer, he'll call over and over and over. Twice he's actually called my workplace saying there was a family emergency when there wasn't. Recently, I was supposed to interview for a promotion. That morning, he picked a huge fight with me and told me if I cared more about my career than my family, then go ahead and go to the interview. I went crying. I didn't get the promotion. When I told him, he actually said, maybe that's a sign you need to focus more on your family anyway. That's when something started to click. This isn't the first job where this has happened. At my last job, I was consistently late because of something that seemed to happen right before I needed to leave. He says I'm blaming him for my inability to manage my life, but I'm starting to wonder, is he actually doing this on purpose? And if he is, what do I do? So, I mean, this is definitely a very interesting, email. Because first thing I want to tell you is this: you're not wrong for noticing a pattern. One missing set of keys could be an accident, right? An argument before work could be coincidence. One unnecessary phone call might mean nothing. But when the same kind of disruptions repeatedly happen around your employment, especially when you're succeeding or becoming more financially independent, it's reasonable to start paying attention. And there's actually a form of economic abuse called employment sabotage. An abusive or controlling partner may interfere with someone's ability to work, maintain employment, advance professionally, or even become, financially independent. And sometimes it's incredibly obvious. They may demand you to quit, refuse to let you go to work, take your money, or show up at your workplace. Sometimes it's much more subtle. It's a fight at midnight before you get up at 7 a.m. The car suddenly isn't available. The child care you arranged suddenly falls through. Your phone just blows up while you're in a meeting. There's always some kind of crisis, something important happening to you, for you, and eventually your employer doesn't see what's happening behind the scenes. They see an employee who is distracted, exhausted, late, absent, constantly dealing with personal problems. And that's what makes this form of abuse so destructive. He doesn't necessarily have to tell you to quit. He just has to make it impossible for you to succeed. I also want you to be, don't become consumed with trying to improve every little single thing. Some of these are not accidents. They are intentional. Instead, start looking at the pattern and protect yourself if you can. If your keys are frequently disappearing before work, keep a spare set someplace secure that only you would have access. Repeated calls disrupting your work, constant emergencies. Set boundaries around the communication during work hours when it's safe for you to do so. If he's contacting your workplace unnecessarily and you feel safe doing it, consider telling a trusted supervisor or HR representative that you're experiencing a difficult situation at home and that unauthorized calls to you should be documented. You don't have to tell the entire story to ask workplace to protect you or their policies and what policies they have available. Start keeping your own records too. Dates, times, what happened, how it affected your work, messages, calls that you can safely preserve. And again, you're not trying to build some elaborate case around every argument. You're trying to see clearly whether it feels like it's random or if it's actually forming a pattern. I also want you to think about something bigger. Your job isn't the only way that it's a paycheck, right? Employment means independence, health insurance, transportation, housing, confidence, relationships outside of the home, and sometimes the financial ability to leave. And that's exactly why interfering with someone's unemployment can become such a powerful form of control. So please, don't dismiss what you're noticing simply because he tells you you're paranoid. You don't have to prove his intentions today, but you absolutely can start protecting your ability to work, because nobody who loves you should need you to fail in order for them to feel secure. So our survivor community, we really want to hear from you. Did an abusive or controlling partner ever interfere with your job, making you late? Constantly calling you, starting fights before work, showing up at your workplace, interfering with the childcare or sabotaging it even. When did you realize it wasn't just coincidence? Share what helped you in the comments. Your experience may help another survivor recognize a pattern they haven't been able to see or name yet. Want to submit your own question? Please do so. Write us about what's happening in your relationship, where you're struggling. If you're struggling after leaving, let us know. Send your question to podcast@breakthesilencedv.org. You will remain anonymous. Your question may also help another survivor who is struggling with the exact same thing. So you can also support survivors through the Spark Good program through Walmart. You can help us out by continuing to reach survivors through that program. So if you visit www.walmart.com/spark4good, search for Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence and select us as your charity of choice. then you round up your purchases every time you purchase something through Walmart. So a few cents may not seem like a much, but when the community does come together, those pennies do start providing education, awareness, resources, and survivor-centered programs. So we thank you, and we will see you next time on Survivor to Survivor.